You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Well, just like Star Trek Prodigy itself, we're not just for kids. No, it's Monday night at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, and it's time to fire up the Protostar. It must be time for Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau. Tonight, we are thrilled to welcome one of the creative minds from Star Trek Prodigy, writer and co-producer Aaron Waltke. Now, since we cover Prodigy on a different podcast, now is your chance to send us your best questions for Aaron. And a little later, we're going to meet a different kind of creative force, the kind who has been bringing Star Trek libations to your home bar. Give us a call tonight, now, to join our conversation. Click out the Zoom meeting link, as you know how to do, or use the one tap from your smartphone, or call us at 669-900-6833 and enter the meeting code, and our esteemed Earl of the Green Room will let you in. Or, you know, the girl green room or the girls green room or something like that.
Girls green. Yeah, you know, Earl, you want to talk to Earl more than you want to talk to us, pretty much. All right. Well, as we do, Norman, we'd like to say hi to everybody who is in the chat, both from Facebook and YouTube and wherever else you may be commenting and connecting with us. Chris Riker right at the top saying hello. There's Scott Palm. How you doing tonight, Scott? Let's see. There's Ryan. There's David. There's Mike. Of course, Captain Mike. Good to see you, sir. There's Paul Wright, P-Dub. I'm sure we'll have another Paul in the crowd. There's Jane. There's Marina. Great to see you, Marina. How's it going? Oh, my gosh. There's Willie McCauley. Good to see you. So many people joining us for the live show. Now, normally we like to keep this light and fun and entertaining, which I promise we will get to. But, Norman, something just happened that we have to bring up that our listeners are chatting about right now, and that is... sadly, the loss of Kirstie Alley, who was the original Saavik in the Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, and of course went on to do so many great shows and was on Cheers for so long. Yeah. And just sudden and tragic. I'm sorry to hear that news today.
Yeah, I did a little bit of internet diving, and unfortunately, it sounds like she had a private battle with cancer that was short-lived, and you know that is how cancer can take somebody, and many of us have experienced that before. But I think the best way right now to kind of move forward with our love for Kirstie and what she has brought to our community is to embrace the legacy that she's given to us, with Saavik, with Rebecca from Cheers. Let's go all the way back to North and South, where I think she may have shared a scene or two with Jonathan Frakes when he was all the way back there. So, remembering her memory and, again, appreciating what she has brought to us, and especially with the very first scene that we saw, during the Kobayashi Maru in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, it will always be in our hearts. And I think that that's the most important thing.
Yeah, she was fabulous. And all we can say is thanks for sharing your talents with us, and Godspeed, Kirstie Alley. Look, I am horrible at transitions. I do want to go back to the chat here just because a couple that I missed. Tara, first timer joining us tonight on YouTube. So Tara, pleasure to see you. And not a first timer, but BC saying, Ala Moraine, how dare you?
Again.
Yeah, really? Again. He knows. He
does.
He tasks me. Norman, let's tell people what's happening in Mission Log World. I'm going to kick us off and just let people know that they should join Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, at the Portal 47 open house. Now, Larry invites all of you to join him for the annual Portal 47 free open house. That's this Wednesday, December 7th at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. Special guest, get this, Ira Stephen Bear.
What?
I know. He will be entertaining your questions. Plus, there's trivia, there's prizes to kick off the night. Get all the details at LarryNemecek.com. You don't want to miss that. And Norman, what's coming up on Mission Log?
Well, as you know, like this Thursday is going to be a new drop for Mission Log. So we have investigations. And I know a lot of our Mission Log fans have been waiting for this episode to drop because it, it resolves something, maybe one or two things with Tom Paris that a lot of our fans have been saying, just wait for it. Well, here it is, folks. You don't want to miss it. And we're going to get
and we may have some words to say about it. Yeah.
We're going to get all the resolutions all at once. And then make sure you visit YouTube at Roddenberry Entertainment to catch up on all of the content that we have, including Mission Log Prodigy.
Oh, wait, I've heard of that show. Yes. Yeah. So, I'm a fan.
Mission Log Prodigy every week, after a few days after the Prodigy episode drops on Thursday, Ashley V. Robinson or Charlene Schmidt and we cover those episodes, and we just did our review on Preludes, which was amazing, which was episode 16, and that is pretty much kicking off kind of like the beginning of the end of the beginning for the rest of the season of Prodigy. So make sure that I know it's very vague.
Wait, is it the beginning of the end or merely the end of the beginning?
Yes. So
okay, I'm just trying to get my Churchill correct. And then my friend Matt, who said, but we still have the whole middle to go.
Yes. In my most vague Vorlon Kosh-esque, sentiment, yes, all of that is yes. And you don't want to miss this is basically the beginning of the momentum towards the finale.
Yeah,
so that's the best. That's the best that I can say. And
make sure you tune in. Yeah, make sure you tune in, because my favorite part. I mean, look, I love you like a brother, Norman, and Ashley and Shar have both been knocking it out of the park on that show. But honestly, it's the calls from kids at the end of the show.
Always,
that's why you stay. Yeah,
absolutely. And what their insights are phenomenal.
They're great. Right? Some of them very surprising. Yeah. And then make sure then you also check us out next week on this very show, Mission Log Live. It is our last show of the season, our last show of the year. And in the TOS tradition, we're having a Christmas party in the science lab. And that means that we're inviting a lot of special guests from the Mission Log family. So join us Monday night, December 12th at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. We will all be here. You will all be here. And we'll ring out the year in high style. So do not miss that. And of course, if you go to youtube.com/RoddenberryProd, there you can also get Mission Log The Orville. You can get Mission Log Engaged. There's just so much happening from Roddenberry Podcast, which you can also follow at podcast.roddenberry.com to see the breadth of shows and where to connect with them.
Yes, Captain Mike, Dr. Helen Noel, we all know.
Yeah, and Kirk knows too. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, all right. Well, hey, look, since I feel like that actually is a great segue to talk about those deep cuts in TOS to bring in our guest. Because one of the beautiful things, I mean, look, we don't get to do this really because Mission Log Live, we've been covering Lower Decks, we've been covering Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, but I think rightfully so, it's a good decision that we spun off Mission Log Prodigy as its own thing. So you could give that a deeper kind of treatment than we would do here, invite on the kids to share their voicemails. So we don't really get to reflect on Prodigy on this show, but tonight we do. And tonight we get to do that with somebody who you've chatted with multiple times before. I've chatted before, and I have so many questions about the development, the direction of Prodigy. Let's welcome you said it before, writer and co-producer of Prodigy, Aaron Waltke. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Glad to be here. Live logs and proper.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey. It's
difficult,
that, right? Because it is kind of difficult.
I do need to apologize on behalf of the entire Star Trek Prodigy crew of introducing an even harder hand symbol than the Vulcan, the fucking Prosper.
Well, because the whole story that like Zachary Quinto, he had to train his hands. They glued his fingers together so he could train to do that. And look, I've been doing that since I was a kid. This is going to be a lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, but if Star Trek is nothing if it's not for its aspirational endeavors.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, let's get directly into that then, and let's talk about, of course, look, I've had very little to do at Roddenberry Podcast with Prodigy. But one of the rare times that I reached out, I had to tell you that I sat there on my couch alone in my apartment, grown up adult human being that I am, crying watching that episode. It was very moving for the people in our audience who maybe have not caught up on Prodigy, or maybe you haven't even started Prodigy because you feel like, oh, that's the Star Trek show for kids. Let me tell you right now that there is a lot of depth to that show, and it is definitely not just for kids. And that one was just like this loving, beautiful, emotional gut punch, and I loved it.
Well, those types of stories, I think, for better or for worse, have become sort of my calling card. It's the type of stories that I gravitate towards the most, of ones that sort of disarm you with some heart and some some casual jokes or a little bit of fun and fanfare, and then suddenly out of nowhere, just as you say, a gut punch of emotion after you've let your guard down. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but there's this concept in storytelling called bathos, and it's sort of a cousin to pathos, which is, evoking emotion, whereas bathos is like you're trying to evoke something really dramatic or highfalutin, and then suddenly you deflate it with something silly or surprising. And I like to do the inverse, where you start with something silly and disarming, and then suddenly, oh, this actually is really profound. Those are my favorite types of stories.
Well, let me ask you that then, because of course tonight the whole night will not just be about that one episode, and of course Norman has many insights into Prodigy, doing the lion's share of the work on the coverage of it that we do. But about that episode in particular, is that the kind of thing, you said that that's your style, is that the kind of thing where do those emotional moments sort of unfold and reveal themselves to you as the writer? Or, because it's hard for me to put together. It's this right combination of really love letter to Star Trek fandom, plus the deep cuts into Trek lore, Trek history, which means that there's a certain amount of academic work going on to bring a script like that to life. But then the character voices get to share these truths, these emotional moments. And is that just something that comes concurrently, that all of those elements come together for you? Or you have this, you're struck with an emotional moment and you're like, ooh, I got to get that down in a script. What's the process there?
Well, the process is rather organic, I would say. The Hagemans and myself on all projects that we've worked on together, we always try to give ourselves enough of a structure as we're going into the concept of an episode, that then once we are actually breaking the story, we can find those little moments of, what is this episode really about? Whose episode is it? What are those emotional kind of truths that we can kind of unearth, both for our main characters, but ideally, for the philosophical theme of the episode. And, for instance, the end of All the World's a Stage, that was very much an episode that we broke in the room. As a team, we all sort of had a basic idea of what we knew the story would be about, which is, belief and the nature of belief as it applies to scientific inquiry, and what you can accomplish as perhaps a Starfleet officer or as a young person in life. But also how that can come, smashing up against imposter syndrome. And, we tend to have these very deep conversations before we even put a single letter or pen to page, of just sort of like, well, how does that affect our hero's journey? But also, how can that be reflected very tangibly in some interesting character moments where you can see it dramatized in real time? And so, we started with Dal's journey in All the World's a Stage of, he is sort of going through a little bit of a questioning himself, is like, if we can't ever join Starfleet, which they're wrestling with, like, how can we do that with this weapon aboard? And we're just pretending to be Starfleet. Can we still be Starfleet at all? And then suddenly he's confronted with these people that seem to believe wholeheartedly they're Starfleet, but obviously are not. And then ultimately, I think we decided that it would be, how interesting would it be of, like, it's not about the letter of the law, it's about the spirit of it. It's about the spirit of Starfleet. And and once we kind of arrived at that conclusion, I think, for instance, with Ensign Garafik's log playing there, I think that was an instance of sort of three different ideas or questions that we had suddenly coming together at once. And I was like, oh, this would be the perfect time for me to get across what I think Ensign Garvik sort of discovered, so many years ago, which is these people are far more than meets the eye, and that anyone, even those you may presume to be the least of us, are capable of great and wondrous things if you give them the opportunity. So it really is just sort of a balance of discovery.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like on iTunes or any of the streaming platforms, like all of a sudden, like maybe one of their kind of like their motto is like, why is Obsession like trending so hard right now? Like out of nowhere, because if for anyone who watched All the Worlds of Stage and you are not familiar with Obsession, the original series episode from season 2, that's the episode where Ensign Garvik, and a lot of history with James T. Kirk happened. There's an interesting thing that's happening, Aaron, in the second half of Prodigy that we've been tracking, Ashley and Shara and I, when we're doing the podcast. In the first 10 episodes, it's all about kind of like how this crew has come together and how Dal has kind of, he's forced himself upon his crew, to be the captain. But ever since Asylum, and especially in All the Worlds of Stage and in Crossroads, even in Let Sleeping Borgs Lie, you're feeling a lot of kind of like, and you mentioned this before, this imposter syndrome, that he's starting to question what it is to be a captain. And I think that we actually felt that all the way back in an episode that you did prior to All the Worlds of Stage, which was Kobayashi, where, he actually felt like what it meant, especially with Spock's influence at the very end, what it meant to actually make the decisions of a captain. And I was wondering if that was like a big conscious decision between, like, say, you influencing kind of like the writer's room and Dan and Kevin saying, you know what, Dal's journey has to be twofold, maybe even threefold, where he has to be this kind of like this cocky, cocksure person, like, you know what, it doesn't take anything to be a captain. All you have to do is sit in the chair. And all of a sudden he makes a decision and like, oh, it's a lot more than sitting in a chair. And then all of a sudden, like at the end of Tars Lamora, and then now he's like, when he wakes up from a comatose state from being like, treated by, boons, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing, which is pretty much in vino veritas after being, in this state. So is this the journey that's always been planned for Dal? Is this something that has always been there since the very beginning?
Yeah, in Prodigy especially, before we even brainstormed episode ideas or anything like that, the first thing we did was we went through each character and spent probably a good 2 weeks straight just talking through where do they start, what's their midpoint, where do they end up at the end of the season, where might they end up at the end of this series, and we took very specific pains to kind of have each movement kind of be a reflection of a different stage of that journey of like, Dal starts coming in with somebody, as you say, who's very sort of cocksure and his ego is very much masking a deep-seated insecurity. And part of that is just because he's never had the sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs met in such a way that he could feel okay with letting other people in. And then once those walls come down, then it becomes a matter of, well, now the real work begins, and he has to learn how to be a good person in service of others, and sort of let go of some of those insecurities in a way that he, like unmolded clay, he can be rebuilt into something, as Sarek would say, the sum being the greater of both of us.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yep. Hey, we do have some callers who are standing by. Tara, we lost you, so definitely call back in when you can if your connection stabilizes. But we are going to say hi to longtime listener, Kim. Kim, how's it going tonight? Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good. I'm actually on my work phone, so forgive me if it's a little shaky. But
we won't tell anybody. Don't worry about it. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, using a work account too. So okay. Anyway. No, this last episode was like really awesome. The music was awesome. The colors, as always, are just spectacular. I'm sitting here going as an adult in my beyond upper 50s, right? Kind of going, I'm enjoying this, and it's designed for like 7 to 14-year-olds. So, no, I honestly have to say that this week's episode was pretty cool. Other than that, I mean, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of exposition, but that was okay because they went into some of their backgrounds, which was fine. I was okay with that. Jacob Hogg was kind of what I figured. Guess what? That's why he refers to himself in the third person.
That's right.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was pretty awesome. So
Jacob Hogg can fix it.
He can. Kim, hang on, Kim. I hate to interrupt you, but we do have a special caller who just joined us, and we want to welcome her to the show. So sorry, forgive me. Friend of the show, friend of Aaron's, friend of Norm's, friend of everybody's. It's Bonnie Gordon.
Hi, Bonnie.
There you go.
Oh, buddy.
I'm calling you from a gas station. Because I sure am classy.
That's wow, so cool of you to call us from a gas station. I hope you're safe on the road coming back as you are. Yeah.
For those who don't know, Bonnie is, of course, the voice of the USS Protostar and the Greater Federation in the mid-2380s. So welcome aboard, Bonnie.
Red alert. Red alert. I am stuck in a gas station. Please send reinforcements. Thank you.
This is what we like. This
Amazing.
is what we wanted you here for. Now, Bonnie, do you have any burning questions for Aaron? I mean, this is your chance to talk to a co-producer, writer of Star Trek Prodigy.
The burning questions. Yeah. Those are for a different podcast.
Oh, okay. We're going to create that one. Yes. Yeah.
Hi everybody. Let me think. So I was so excited to like park in a parking lot in a gas station to call in that I didn't think of what questions I should ask to call in about.
Really, your presence is enough.
Think of something.
Your presence is enough. Yeah. No, we're just glad that you're here. That's
I'm glad to be anywhere, frankly.
By the way, everybody's saying hello to you. I mean, Marina, Paul, other Paul, Tara, Chris, Scott Palm, I mean, with multiple extraneous letters in your name, multiple N's there. Jane, Shar, everybody, they're really more excited to see you than any of us. And so that should make you feel good. Yes.
Well, that's usually the case.
If y'all don't hear from me in a couple hours, send troops to the middle of nowhere, California.
We'll track your GPS. Carlos says, this is the future, talking from a gas station. Of course it is.
Of course.
Technology.
It is. Hey, very important because we love nothing more than allowing our platform to be a vehicle for shameless self-promotion. Where can people catch you soon? Because I know you got a lot of shows coming up in the LA area. So anybody who is here in LA or near enough by to come down for a visit, I mean, we'll hang out. Where can we catch you? Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm doing a lot of singing this holiday season, so you can find me on most Thursday nights at the Illusion Magic Lounge in Santa Monica singing jazz. You can catch me at Clifton's Republic downtown, starting every Friday and Saturdays, starting in a few days, I think, doing... I don't know what yet, but it involves singing and creating my own character and backstory. So I'll get right on that and creating an immersive character experience. Speaking of an immersive character experience, Aaron Waltke, when are you going to write an episode about me?
Yes.
Preludes for the voice of the computer. That's what.
No, just me in general.
Just Bonnie Gordon warps in from the multiverse into Star Trek.
Exactly.
It's coming. Season 3. You signed an NDA.
Oh, okay.
By the way, Paul Harveth in the chat says, and appropriately so, Bonnie is an immersive character experience. And that's absolutely correct. Tara says, ooh, Bonnie, I assume as the voice of the computer, Bonnie versus Peanut Hamper.
Ooh.
Absolutely see that coming. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cue the music. Dun, 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 dun,
Right,
dun,
right.
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Bonnie, important question. Any of these shows that you're doing coming up for the holiday season, will there be any of your Star Trek songs at those?
You know what? For the jazz night,
Mm-hmm.
there are no rules. I just sing what I want. So
Okay.
absolutely. And I'm setting up a tripod, and I'm going to take more video and even try and stream it. I'm not quite sure. Look, for a computer, I'm not very tech savvy. So
Well, look, I know a guy. So yeah, maybe
I mean,
we can
I
make
know
something
lots of
happen.
guys,
Well,
but if we're talking about like tech
I wasn't
savvy
getting
ones.
into your personal life, so we'll. All right.
Okay, so John, you'll just come to the jazz night and take video for me, right?
That's what it sounds like is happening. Okay, Bonnie, drive safely. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Till
I
next
love
time.
you all. I love you, Aaron. Sorry I had to crash your interview.
No, you sent it off the rails in the best possible way.
That's what I'm good at. Pure chaos. And go.
All right, Bonnie. Take
Bye,
care.
Bonnie.
Live
logs and prosper
everybody.
and proper.
Yeah, there we go. All right, cheers.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
That's why we do the show live.
Right?
That's why.
How do I
this
get out of here? Help. Let me out. Let me out.
All right.
I was
Earl.
just at Starbase Indy with Bonnie, and we had a wonderful time, and there was some great panels there.
That's awesome.
Always a pleasure to see her.
Great. See, Kim, you got two for the price of the one. You called in to talk to Aaron, and then boom, Bonnie shows up.
Yeah, so Bonnie, okay, so Bonnie trumps me. Just saying,
Bonnie is the sort of a force of nature. That's
We're all one big happy fleet, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
No problem, I'm good. That was cool.
But one thing I'm glad, Kim, that you called in and you were talking about how this last episode, Preludes, affected you in such a way. I mean, I think what the great thing is, and I think that there's a huge sentiment that's kind of sweeping across fandom right now in Star Trek, where, fans of a certain age like us, we're saying that, okay, we know that Prodigy has been marketed a certain way, and it obviously kind of like started with an appeal in a certain way. But when some of we of an older generation of fans are watching it, we're seeing things that are really important, when it comes to what Star Trek means. When there's this emphasis on, really good moral storytelling. There's this emphasis on, really strong characters and characters that we want to grow with and fall in love with. And, when we're invested in them, their joy becomes our joy and their hardship becomes our hardship. And when you're shedding tears, as John said earlier, about characters in a show and especially animated characters, that the character development has told the story that it needs to tell. And I think that's the most important thing, whether it's animated or whether it's marketed towards an audience of, YA 14 to, 50, 60 older, year-old fans. That's great storytelling. That's just the bottom line. It's just storytelling that means something and it's very important to all of us. It connects. And I think that that's something that maybe people didn't really understand about Prodigy at first.
Kim, you've brought up something that I think is really important to figuring out Prodigy and how that fits into all of these Star Trek shows, because we have this blessing of so many Star Trek shows and more to come, obviously. Aaron, what is that conversation like among writers and producers on Prodigy, where you're saying to yourselves, okay, this is a show that is aimed at children within a certain age bracket, but we know that we're also writing this show for somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond who grew up with Star Trek and also wants to get something out of this. How do you square that, or does it just kind of come naturally?
Well, I think that our process, and I'm speaking on behalf of the whole writers' room at this point, and also with the Hagemans, all the shows we've worked on together, we've always approached it not from saying, it's an animated show for children. We've always said, it's a show for everyone. We always kind of harken back to a lot of the what's called 4-quadrant storytelling, which I know has a totally different meaning in Star Trek. But it's for young and old, men and women, everyone in between. And it's the sort of storytelling that you saw in the 80s with, Amblin, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, those movies where, you could go with your little sister and your dad and your grandfather, and everyone would walk out of that theater having just seen Jurassic Park and gotten something out of it. Either the emotional through lines or the excitement or the scary moments with the Velociraptor in the kitchen. There was always something that kind of gave a chance for connection between all the different generations and a story that kind of transcends age or race or boundary. And, did we achieve that? I don't know, but that's something we always strive for. And the other simplified rule is just we want to make a show that we ourselves would enjoy watching. So that's always been our approach.
Right. Thank you. Kim, we've got to jump to the break. It is the bottom of the hour. So any parting thoughts or questions before we say goodbye?
I guess my only parting thought is that my 2-year-old grandchild still isn't mature enough to really watch Prodigy. I tried to introduce her to it when it aired originally, the first half of the first season, whatever you want to call it. And she literally had some trouble with some of that. So I've backed off, but I look forward to sharing it with her when she's a little older. But
perfect.
That's all I can say.
She'll get
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Once she starts gravitating towards Murph, then she's ready to start watching the show.
Yes, Murph.
Although I got to say about Murph, I'm not so sure I like his change. I liked him better the other way.
Oh.
And I still want one of those plushies.
Who doesn't, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, change is a part of life, as to summarize.
There we are.
True. Yeah. Okay.
Excellent.
Right.
Hey, Kim, thanks for calling. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Take care.
Right.
Live logs
You
and
too.
Proper.
Yes, yeah, we're doing that all night. That's gonna be tough. Maybe I'll get good at it finally.
Got to practice that. Hey,
here we go. Here's your transition, Norm.
Mm-hmm.
Something I am good at is cracking open a bottle of wine. All right. So apologies to our guest and to anyone who is tired of hearing me and Norm talk about wine, but we have welcomed back to the show Craig Spurrier from Star Trek Wines. Last week he was here, or week before, he was talking about Star Trek Spirits. Those are, I guess you can explain it to us, same company but different brands doing different products. And tonight we're talking a little bit about Star Trek wine. So Craig, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Craig.
Hey, so I'm going to show off here just a little bit. So yes, that is the Klingon blood wine in my hands. I got to try this in Vegas, and let me tell you, it was spicy and lovely, and I was immediately thinking about all the foods that would pair nicely with. And truly the most beautiful bottle of wine is the Kanar here.
It really is.
Holding up. Norman and I both covet. Now, you've already knocked through your Kanar and used this as a decanter, which
it's
awesome.
The bottles are the gifts that keep on giving, believe me. Yeah.
But Craig, that really comes down to the question of what you guys do at Star Trek Wines to marry.
Now, is that Saurian brandy?
Oh, wait, is Saurian brandy coming? That's really the question.
Yeah. That's the big question. Sure.
Yeah. It is in the pipeline. Put it that way.
Okay.
The Star Trek experience.
There we go.
We're working on some good things for that. So
nice. Well, here's the question really about the wines, because we do want to encourage everybody to go over to StarTrekWines.com, check out the collection there. There's so many options at this point. And I will let you know now that if you add that metal United Federation of Planets medallion to your order, and then you type in the code Roddenberry, the price on that medallion, Craig's holding it up. Talk to us, Craig.
There it is.
Switch over to you.
Sure. So this, we're offering this medallion. It's a $15 value. Just like John said, add it to your cart and use the coupon code Roddenberry. And then we'll ship this out with your order for free, for no charge. So
that's pretty great.
It has an adhesive back, so you can stick it on your reusable drink, or anything that you want to drink out of, any drinking vessel.
So I can make a Federation coffee mug, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, Craig, here's the thing that I want to ask you about. And I know that you and your team, you've put such great care and work into doing things like recreating the Canar bottle. And as we saw a couple of weeks ago, doing the Romulan ale bottles. Can you talk to us a little bit about marrying the product quality with the prop value of what you've created? Because I think anybody who just saw this on a shelf would be like, oh yeah, I want that prop. But part of your goal is to make something that is good that we will want to drink and we want to share with friends.
Right. Yeah. So our wine selection is very important, and we want to marry the wine quality with the quality that you see in the bottles that we do produce. Each bottle we produce, such as this Ryzen Rosé, which we're going to be shipping out this week. It takes us about a year to develop, especially with the decorative topper here. But the wine quality, our winemaker, Andrew Nelson, just got awarded top 40 under 40 from Wine Enthusiast as the top tastemaker. So we definitely over-deliver or try to over-deliver on the wine quality. And I think it, based on the comments we get on the reviews of the wine, people are agreeing that we're not just slapping labels on cheap juice. We really do pay attention to the quality and source it from the top regions that are available to us, such as this new Picard version of the Ryzen wine, which is a nice Sauvignon Blanc out of North Coast, California. Great drinking wine, and again, thanks for bringing that up. That we really focus on the wine quality.
Well, and what I also love is, you focus on the wine quality, but you just showed off those two Ryzen bottles. And Howard, also part of your team, you were both telling me that you polled fans and said, okay, what do you want? Do you want the Enterprise version of the Ryzen bottle? Do you want the Picard version of the Ryzen bottle? Fans were split, and you were like, all right, we're doing both. Right. So there's really an interactivity and listening to what fans want to make it great, to make it truly a product that you want on your shelf, and will enjoy drinking too.
Exactly, and then along with the two Ryzen bottles, we're going to be shipping out the new 2401. Chateau Picard.
That's the one. There we go. That's got that silver label and that kind of that dipped black top. Yeah.
It's got a aluminum metal label that you see on the Picard Season 2, as well as the decorative show prop topper, which is a silicone reusable topper. But it's an exact show prop replica that you saw in Picard Season 2.
By the way, hilariously in the chat, Chris Riker just said, how about some triple sec?
Well done.
Nice. Well played, Chris. Well played.
Yes.
And Tara says, wine suggestion, mini bottles for tasting gifts. I don't know how realistic that is, but I will just jump in here and say, hey, Tara, come to one of the conventions where we're all appearing together. And we had some amazing tastings in Vegas. Might be doing that again on the cruise. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Yeah. Craig, something you just pointed out, that amazing Picard bottle. There's also the Strange New Worlds version of Chateau Picard 2221.
Correct. Yeah, 2221 vintage that you saw in Captain Pike's quarters when he was having the crew over for dinner, which was unique because it wasn't made by the dinner wasn't made by the replicator. They were all making dinner themselves, which is nice to see. So they were serving the 2221 vintage on that episode.
And now we can get that from StarTrekWines.com, which is also, by the way, Tara says, I will be on the cruise. How long will my bottle of Kanar and Andorian ale last unopened? Not long.
Not long.
Not long at all. So,
but we do include the decorative topper. So like Norman has, you can reuse it as a decanter for the Kanar. And most of the bottles we have, especially the new Ryzen bottles, are the same. We ship it out with a nice VinoSeal glass enclosure, and then include the decorative topper alongside, so you can reuse the bottles after you open them.
Excellent. Craig, cannot thank you enough, cannot thank the whole team enough for supporting us. And of course, Norman and I like to talk about products we believe in. And this is certainly a range of products that we believe in.
Oh, we believe in them wholeheartedly.
we sure
believe
do.
Me. Yeah.
And we want to thank the Star Trek fandom for supporting us and allowing us to do crazy, great bottles like this. Because without, the fan support and purchasing our products, we wouldn't be able to do things like Surian brandy or Romulan ale, or
you mean this?
Yeah, there we go. A little Romulan rye. Yeah,
exactly. So we love it, and we love doing it, and hopefully we're going to keep going with replicating as much as we can. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Craig. Thank you so much. And I believe we have a special guest who is joining us next week, talk about the science of some of this stuff. So that's a little tease for everybody. We'll be in touch, and we'll see you again. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. Take care.
And proper.
Have a good one. All right, everybody. So you know the score. You see it on the screen right now. Go to StarTrekWines.com and use our code Roddenberry after you add that medallion to your card, and magically that price will disappear. You will not be paying for that medallion. Order yourself some Chateau Picard. Order yourself, yes, Shar, Klingon blood wine does exist. It really does, and it is tasty. Order some Kanar, get whatever you like. There's so many to choose from. And thank you again to StarTrekWines.com for sponsoring us. We are grateful. Thank you, Aaron, for sitting through our advertorial, as I like to say.
But I was watching Aaron's eyes. He's like, "Ooh, those Ryzian wine toppers are quite."
No, I love whiskey. And so as soon as I saw they were offering Romulan ale, I was like, Roddenberry code. I'll type that in.
Hey, I'll send you the video that Norman and I did doing a proper tasting, because Norman knows his stuff. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah.
Can't wait.
It is not bad at all.
One of our Pauls, John, there was a wonderful note in the chat. You suck, Norm. I know. Well, I've heard that before many times.
Wait, that's the other Paul. Wait, we got good Paul here. We got Mirror Universe Paul in the chat.
I don't know what this Paul's going to say. It varies from one Paul to the other.
You never know. You never know. Yeah. Paul, welcome to the show. How's it going tonight?
Greetings, gentlemen. Greetings. Nothing like Mission Log to bring together the, person who's running the child show of Star Trek, and then along with the spirits.
They go together more than you would think.
Aaron, it's a pleasure to see you again. We saw you a few days ago in Indianapolis at the, of all places, the bar, and then the Klingon bar, where we were mulling over some of their spirits. I got to ask you, when you go to conventions, which are generally populated with, adults who can afford these kind of things, how many children do you run into, and/or what is the response from the adults to your show? Are you getting? I'm just curious as to what you hear out there.
Well, I went to Mission Chicago, and I went to Starbase Indy, where we chatted, and in both occasions, I saw some, and the response from them was always really overwhelmingly positive, and it just sort of brought a tear to my eye because, you know, it's sort of a harrowing prospect to think that the show that I'm involved in making might be their next generation. It might be their TOS. It might be their gateway into all these other incredible series that we all know and love so much. So it's always been really quite a wonderful experience. Most recently, at Starbase Indy, I was doing a panel and we opened it up to Q&A, and a girl in the front row was like, tell me something I don't know about Murph. And so I started to tell her that, his transformation was based on axolotl, transformations that happen only in certain circumstances. And she cut me off and was like, that only happens in captivity. And I'm like, wow, whoa, amazing. A little scientist in the making. So like the kids are out there and they're way smarter than you would ever think. As far as the adult response, as I said before, we made the show for everybody, not just for kids, not just for parents watching their kids. And it really has response that we've been getting from even adults who sort of came to me and said, or tweeted at me or tweeted the hashtag and said, I was wrong. I'm paying my mea culpas. This show is fantastic. I wrote it off as just being a kid's show. And now I see it's just some phenomenal trek. And that is deeply gratifying because everybody who worked on the show are huge Star Trek fans. And all we want to do is tell wonderful stories that might spark the imagination of the next generation.
And I think that when we started doing the first couple of episodes for Mission Log Prodigy, we as Star Trek fans, we want to keep that open mind and kind of like watch it unfold, as it happened. And sure, the first maybe 20-ish minutes of Lost and Found, there was a certain kind of parallel that could have been drawn between, say, Star Wars Rebels, and that episode, just because of the animation quality. And it's kind of like I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but there's this kind of like this obviousness of animation styles, that's happening between these two series. But that's just all on the surface. You're dealing with kind of like the surface aspect of what you're watching, and then you start getting into the character motivations. When you see the protostar for the first time, when Dal and Roktak, when they finally come together, see the protostar, then finally get the communicator and activate Janeway, the entire tone of that series changes. The shift is monumental. And then you start getting invested in their stories, and sure, are they children on this ship? Yes. But are the lessons that are being learned through Janeway and through their trials and tribulations, are they Star Trek to the core? Absolutely. Right. I think the greatest thing that I've learned, and Ashley has learned, and Char's learned, and I'm going to speak for them. What we've observed in this podcast and in the show so far, and what we've talked about on the podcast, is that this show treats children like mature, intelligent people that they are. Right. They don't speak. This series does not speak down to children. It punches up, for children, and it speaks for them, and it speaks in a voice that allows children like this person who asked you about Murph and then had this specific detail about, evolution. It allows them to be that person, instead of like, oh, look, pretty colors. And I'm sure that there's a lot of them, but it doesn't limit children's expectations. And I think that's the best thing.
Yeah, and I was the kid who stayed up late at night under the covers thinking long and hard about like, well, if Data's head was left in a cave 500 years ago, and then they just put it back on, does that mean his head is 500 years older than the rest of them? It's like, I think for children and adults and teenagers and everyone in between, the stories are stories, and we always just wanted to tell a good story. And I think that's kind of the key to all of it is, sure, there might be a few specific bits of techno babble or references to quantum mechanics that might fly over a child's head, but they understand the gist of it. And whenever people say, oh, isn't Star Trek Prodigy, that episode that's referencing the Galileo, would a kid even get anything out of that episode? I just point to your podcast, because at the end of it, all I hear is 5, 6, 7 voicemails from kids who get exactly what we were going for. And, it lifts my spirits every time, because I was one of those kids when I was young that watched the shows and the movies that maybe I was told were too complex for me or too philosophical or whatever, and I just absorbed it by osmosis. And now here I am as a nearly 40-year-old man talking on a podcast about how much I love making Star Trek. So I think it's one of those things where you shouldn't underestimate young people, because they're going to be taking over the world.
Well, I think that speaks to the whole process and the whole fandom of Star Trek. I mean, for myself, being 3, 4, 5 years old, watching TOS, a show that was a show made by and for adults, but was accessible enough that I, as a child, could watch it and appreciate it on some level. I liked the adventure. I liked the sci-fi trappings of it. And then over time, develop into studying the morals, meanings, messages, trying to figure out what that show was trying to say. And I think Prodigy hits that sweet spot as well, where you can watch it and appreciate it for the flash and action that it has. But then, like you just said, you hear from a 5-year-old on the calls on Mission Log Prodigy saying, here's what I learned. And it's fantastic to hear that.
And it's correct.
It is correct, yeah. Although, wait, spoiler, listen to tomorrow's show. I'm curious what you think about one of the callers at the end of tomorrow's show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sure.
We'll see.
But Chris Riker says that kids can name every dinosaur. They get this stuff early, so you better make it as plausible and as scientific as possible. And you said, Aaron, kids may not get the quantum mechanics aspect of it, but you know what? Most adults won't either. So, right?
Oh, wait, Paul Harvard does. Paul Harvard raising his hand. You get it.
So Aaron, I'm just thinking of you in the driver's seat of this thing, and we've recently had another guest, and I'm trying to imagine your email box. And here's your email title. It says, about this show. Are you more terrified by one from Aaron McDonald or from Bonnie Gordon?
I'm usually not terrified by either, because, and this is not me tooting my own horn, but usually Dr. Aaron and Bonnie both just come at me with praise and how much they love it. So,
nice.
I don't, maybe I'm just lucky in that I haven't gotten my science so far off the map that Dr. Aaron has come at me saying, you can't do that. She always, if there's one thing that she sometimes does ask us to change, is use the word quantum less. And I'm like, that's Star Trek. That's not me. Star Trek uses the word quantum.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
That's so funny.
Paul, any other thoughts or questions?
Well, I just want to end with this. I know Norman's passion for this show is amazing, and Aaron, yours is too. It's just obvious you're having fun. Keep it up, brother, and we'll look forward to. I'm a bit behind on it. I'm going to catch up here as we go forward. We got to the middle of that first season, and there's just so much going on with COVID and everything. We had to parse out what we were watching, but I'm looking forward to catching up. And great honor talking to you here tonight, sir. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Hey, Paul, thanks so much. Till next time. All right.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye. Take care. Since this seems to be, obviously Mission Log Live is a show that also is geared toward adults, not like Mission Log Prodigy, but I'm thinking about this and wondering, because this has been a theme about making Prodigy effectively reach both audiences, something that parents can watch with their kids, or just, adult Star Trek fans can watch and get something out of. I wondered from kind of the opposite angle. Last few episodes that I've watched, the exposition has really kicked into overdrive. Do you feel like when you get to an episode like that, so by contrast, you take something like All the World's a Stage, nice standalone episode. We understand beginning, middle to end what's happening there within that self-contained episode. But then you got to these last couple and really was laying out all this exposition about where we've come from and potentially where we're going. Do you feel at any point when you're doing an episode like that, like, oh man, how are we going to present this in a way that our youngest audience is going to get? Because I can tell you that as somebody who is not in the youngest demographic of your audience, I had to watch it 3 times and sit there and mentally take notes like, oh, okay, that was then this is now, and they're referring to that. Or do you just say, you know what? We respect our audience's intelligence. They're going to get it on some level or another. Let's just run with it.
Well, I find when it comes to exposition, well, maybe I'm just a weirdo, but whenever I get to like an exposition scene in a movie, those are the parts where I lean in, because I'm always fascinated by, okay, you know, you've had your wish fulfillment and your fantastical adventure and fun, but how are you going to explain this? and that's the stuff that always thrills me. And I always was thrilled by it, even as a kid. You know, I would sit on the playground and we would just argue endlessly over how the T-1000 works and whether it could beat a predator.
Can it? Wait, can it?
I think it depends whether the T-1000 is on a planet that has molten metal. Anyway,
okay. Yeah, got it.
But yeah, so like in terms of how to lay it out, I think I have a bad habit of just I would write a whole thing and in the world, but when it comes to you know, in Prodigy especially, sometimes we'll write the dense version, and then we'll sort of like almost like a bonsai tree. We'll prune it down and simplify it, and see where we can use one word where 3 words, where one word will do instead of 3, and you know, try to find spots where just distilling it down to its essence, but also making sure that the internal logic is there, and you know, those key phrases that are alluding to other Star Trek concepts or episodes or what have you, so that for the people like me who want to do those deep dives into lore, it's there. And they can say, "Oh, this is connecting to Endgame. Oh, this is connecting to all the to, you know, Trials and Tribulations, whatever." And so, yeah. I think that we realized that some of our favorite episodes of Star Trek were these sort of just people on a ship hanging out or working out their feelings type of episodes, and we hadn't had the chance to really do that yet. Which is why, you know, when it came to the sort of story time aspect of Preludes, we were like, you know what, it'll be a little experimental. It's a bit of a risk, but I think that people might actually genuinely appreciate it. And, you know, I know Dan Hageman especially was worried about that episode, that, you know, that we were sort of taking a big swing. And thankfully, the response has been people it absolutely loved it. You know, they responded to all those individual stories. It deepened your understanding of the characters. It answered questions you may have had floating in the back of your mind, but did it in a way that was character forward and character first. And I think that's kind of the key to when you're approaching any sort of concept like that, even if it's not just exposition, or, you know, it could also be technobabble. There's a reason why they always say the crazy part first, and they say, "Oh, you mean like putting too much air in a balloon?" To quote Futurama.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, the great thing about Preludes, and I'm going to spoil, you know, my own podcast, you know, for a second, but I believe that it was timed just right, because this is episode 5 going into like the last, or I should say episode 6 going into the last 4 episodes that's going to finish out the season. And you have to almost have this pause where everyone takes a deep breath and just learn something about everything that they need to know before they get to the end. Because, you know, we're getting into, again, like probably like the most condensed version of this back half of the season. And there's going to be a lot that has to be explained, but it has to start from somewhere. And it just doesn't start from Preludes. I mean, Rock Talks, you know, kind of like her association with NutriGoo, it goes all the way back to like the second or third episode, where that's the only thing that she knew to get from the replicator. And now this just even deepens that heartbreak, because the only thing that she knows about NutriGoo and the Applause is based on how she was abused when she was, you know, younger, you know, before Tars Lamora. So we're learning so many things, but I think it's because we need to know these many things in order to get to the next stage of wherever we're going with the story.
Yeah, I think we wanted to sort of clear the deck, so to speak, and give people enough that they could latch on to, that they wouldn't be wondering as much about, like, well, what about who those characters were beforehand? And so we were like, what if we just kind of address it head on? And, and one of the themes of that episode is like, the past is prologue, and what's more important is where we go, from here on out, and to build a brighter future together. Which, how can you get more Star Trek than that?
That's what Gwen said. Yeah.
By the way, Tara in the chat says, curious, who chose that particular Chopin prelude? Chopin requested that it be played at his funeral.
I don't recall specifically, but I do remember very early on we did want to do a prelude of some sort, that both to evoke the name of the episode and just to sort of set the tone of that kind of meditative quality that this episode was going to be venturing into as Janeway kind of, explored the backstories of the characters, and the characters themselves kind of dove into their, we just wanted to have it immediately right off the bat give you a sense of a change of pace, that this is sort of a reflective kind of meditative mood, different from the action-packed ones that maybe you've seen in the last couple. The short answer is we felt like we'd given the audience a heart attack enough that we wanted to give them a chance to kind of breathe before moving into the grand finale, so to speak.
Got it.
By the way, Daveed Diggs, casting him as a voice actor is inspired. Tyces is so amazing. I hope we get to see more of Tyces later on.
Yeah, we love that character a lot, and we were absolutely thrilled when Daveed agreed to be part of the show. This isn't the last you've seen of Tyces, that's for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Well, now I know that we can't get into spoilers here, and of course we've got 3 more episodes in
4 from
season?
here.
4 from here. Okay, yeah, 17. Yeah, okay. So 4 more to go. Are you in production on season 2? Like, where do things stand? Okay.
Yeah, I think we've announced we have 40 episodes in that are ordered and are various stages of production. And so as of now, we have the next 20 episodes written and storyboarded, and now we're just embarking the ongoing arduous process of actually making the show. But it's one of those things where you just keep the plate spinning, and then eventually magic comes out the other end.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you. And, thanks to everybody who is listening to us. And maybe you're in that portion of our audience who hasn't caught up on Prodigy, hasn't started it yet. I really encourage you to do so. It's such a joy, each of those episodes, to find the Star Trek in it. And that is something that Aaron, you and the rest of the team have done. I mean, you said it yourself, you're all big fans, and you're just creating great Star Trek intended for kids or adults or anybody who happens to find it. So thank you for all the work on that, and I hope we get to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really fun seeing the audience reactions. I think Ryan Britt, who is the author of a great book called Set Phasers to Stun, said it best, that our show is sort of like a magic trick where, at first you presume it's one thing, and then by the end of it, it's the trekkiest trek that ever trekked. And, and I hope more people come along for the journey and enjoy what we have, because I'm very proud of it, and I've been very touched by the response, and it's great stuff. I hope you enjoy.
Well, not only are you proud of it and we're proud of it, but it seems that the Emmys are proud of it. So could you tell us just a little bit about that very quickly?
Yeah. So we were nominated for Best Animated Series, and that is this Sunday. You can watch it on the Emmys app. I think you should just sign up for a free registry, and then you watch there. Or I think it's like watchemmys.tv, something like that. It's this Sunday. LeVar Burton is also going to be there. He's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. It's the Children's and Family Emmys. And then there's also some juried awards that they'll be giving out too, that, who knows. So check it out. Fingers crossed. But it's the big one. Best Animated Series can't really get bigger than that one.
Cool. Well,
congratulations, man.
Yeah, congratulations. We'll definitely be watching. And just very quickly, a few last comments here as we say goodnight. First of all, calls for more Jellicoe.
Yeah.
Definitely seeing that. Let's see. Kim saying the music is awesome. Yes, it is. Go back and listen to Norm's interview with Nami because that was excellent. It is so good. Great show. The story continues. And thanks to Aaron, John, and Norman. Thank you, everybody, for all of these great comments. And with that, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live by the inexorable Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thank you to everyone who joined us live or later. We look forward to chatting with you again next week.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.